to become successful in any type of domain, whether that be sports, business, or just a career path, you have to put in thousands of hours to perfecting your craft. And those thousands of hours, those perhaps even tens of thousands of hours, may happen over the course of 20 years, 30 years. But imagine if you can get it done sooner. Imagine if you can get it done in 10 years or 5 years. Wouldn't you be a lot further ahead? And that's what front loading basically is. It means that you're getting done, like you're getting the work done earlier, so then you can fast track your success. I like to think about it like investing. So let's say you had to invest, I don't know, $500. Let's say something like $50 every week for the next like 20, 40 years. Well, that's going to grow to like several $1,000,000 if you have a decent interest rate, maybe like something between 1 to 5%. Not saying that 1% is decent, but imagine you had a lump sum of $200,000. Maybe you just have an inheritance. Maybe you just, it's won something. You put the $200,000 down. Now, if you did that and you still added the 50 each time, you would have gotten maybe double that amount. If you had 6 million initially, you might even have 12 million, provided that you have this huge initial amount invested. And that's what front loading is. You're basically doing all that work when you're young, when you're between the 17 to 30, because that's the best time for you to be working on your goals. 17 is when you're just finishing high school. You're in the last year of high school. You kind of have some idea of what you want to do, so you know that you can just work on that basically. And between those years, your vitality is so high, your health is so high, you don't have that many responsibilities. Like, it's unlikely that you'll have a family, it's unlikely that you'll have a mortgage in that age range. So that's the best time for you to work on your goals and the best time to get that slight edge. And all of it just compounds. So if you get to that position in sport, in business, in your career sooner, right, you're at a very high level young. Imagine the level you can get to when you're 40, 50, 60. You'll be at an insanely high level. So front loading is awesome. Like, I think everyone should front load if they can to the earlier years of their life, and they'll be thanking themselves for it. Like, I don't want to be working 50, 60 hours a week when I have kids. I want to be spending time with my kids. I want to be spending time, well, future kids. I don't have kids yet, but like, I want to be spending time with my children and my wife and my family. I don't want to be working like crazy when I'm older. So if I work hard now, I can work less in the future, because I would have built all of the passive income sources, all of the, I guess, assets required to get to that point. And there's something called career capital. So imagine that you're a software engineer, and it takes about 10 to 20 years to become a really good software engineer if you worked like normal hours, like somebody like working normal hours. But let's say you worked a bit harder. Let's say you worked a little bit more. You worked 50 hours instead of 40 hours a week, right? That's still a lot. That's a lot. Every 4 weeks, that's an extra work week, right? That's an extra work week that you have ahead of somebody else. You can use your weekends for this. You can use like public holidays. If you're willing to work very hard in the earlier years of your life, you can enjoy the fruits of your labor in the later years of your life. When everyone else is trying to catch up, you're already ahead. You're already fine, right? You don't have to work 5 days a week. You can work 3 days a week. You don't have to, you don't have to like worry about starting a business when you're 40, because you've already done it when you're in your 20s. So that's why you should front load your work. You should get as much done when you're young, when you're healthy, when you have no chronic illness, and when you have no mortgage. Just get it done as early as possible. And if you're wondering how to effectively front load, there's a few things you should do. Now, life isn't just about money. Life is about health and wealth and your relationships. So let's say you have a subpar physique. You want to get a better physique. Now, depending on where you're starting, whether you're a bit chubby or whether you're really skinny, you just want to go through a period where you're adding on muscle and then you're cutting back down. You do bulking, cutting, maybe 2 really big ones, and then you'll find, if you're a guy, like, you'll get a really good physique if you bulk and cut a couple times. And just try and focus on building your physique, building, I guess, your dream body young, because if you can build it between 17 and 30, like, that's like 13 years, And if you're if you're looking after your health, if you're going to the gym, if you're training in martial arts, then you become very healthy and you have these habits. You have these habits young that you'll carry into your 30s, you'll carry into your 40s. When other people look like they're, like 60 at the age of 40, you'll look like you're 20. You'll have the vitality of a 20-year-old. You can outcompete the 20-year-olds in sports because you've looked after yourself. So just make sure that you focus on your physical fitness. So that's like the first thing. The second thing is to pick a high value skill. Not all skills are the same. You can still leverage like skills that are considered not as I guess respected, and skills that might not be considered to be, I guess, lucrative. Like think about art and making art. People have the perception that you can't make a lot of money with art, but you can. If you have commissions, you can make really good money. I've seen several seven-figure businesses where they basically have a marketplace where they sell people's art and they take a cut. And you can do a lot of things. So, yeah. Not every skill is the same. I mean, something like coding, that might be a much better skill compared to a skill like bricklaying. Because think about the skill tree that you have in front of you. If you're bricklaying, you can still make a lot of money. You can make a lot of money, especially being young, but it comes at a physical cost. Comes at a cost to your body and your back. You're gonna have an illness when you're older because you've been bending over and laying bricks for such a long time. Whereas if you're coding, well, then if you become skilled, you can work for tech companies. You can earn a very good living. You can work from home. There's so many like perks to that. So pick a high value skill. And normally the highest value skills will be things in technology, things in healthcare, things in finance, things in even education if you want to do online education. So yeah, just pick a high value skill and then work on that skill for the greater part of a decade, and you'll be one of the best in the field. Remember that you don't have to be the best. You don't have to like, I don't know. I think becoming successful in certain things isn't that hard because most people, they give up, they get distracted. But if you can kind of avoid the pitfalls that people make, then you'll be so likely to succeed. So that's like the second thing. The third thing is to create an ideal week. In our lives, we need some sort of structure. Even if we have goals to achieve and to try and get to, we need to come up with a system for getting to those goals. And the way that I like to make that is with an ideal week. So I have my calendar, I have my fitness goals, I have my business goals, I have my educational goals, and I factor in time for everything. I even have goals for like my friendships and my relationships with my family and other people that I really care about. And I just factor all of those things in. And that way I know that if I follow my schedule, then I will achieve my goals. And I don't worry too much if the day doesn't go exactly the way I want. If I don't work out in the morning because something comes up, I'll do a workout at nighttime. I'm flexible, but I'm also structured. So that's the third thing. The fourth thing is to read more books. Read more books and listen to more podcasts because you don't know everything yet. You don't know everything you need to succeed yet. And if you hear podcasts from people that are really successful, if you read books for people that are in the place in life that you want to be in, that's powerful. You get their ideas. You get the amalgamation of all their struggles distilled into a book. And by reading that book and getting that knowledge, it's such a cheat code. Like imagine getting the cheat code to being successful in a business because you read a person's book, you read their autobiography, you read their book about how they made their business. It's yeah, or even like just a book about someone who became successful and lost weight. Like you can get so much knowledge and value from that. So read more books and listen to great podcasts. The fifth one is to build meaningful relationships. Like sure, I said work very hard in your late teens and early 20s or late teens and 20s, but our life is only as meaningful as the relationships we have in them. The more meaningful your relationships are, the more meaningful your life is. Like I can talk about working and like how you should hustle all the time, but if you ask any guy on their deathbed, or if you ask them, a nurse that looks after people who are dying, and especially if those people are male, do you know what the number one thing most males regret on their deathbed? That they worked too much, that they didn't spend enough time with their friends, that didn't make time for their family. make time for their partner. So make sure to, still foster these relationships. It's not easy to balance everything, and sometimes you're going to go through periods where you can't do the work and do the relationships. But make time for the ones that you can. Try and fit them in, because if you can supplement hard work with spending time with your friends, as enjoyment with spending time with your family, spending time with your partner, then life is just more meaningful, and you're less likely to burn out. And it's a much better type of distraction than just like watching Netflix or like just whatever mindless thing people tend to do these days. So those are my like 5 tips for effectively front loading. But there's also some pitfalls, and I wanted to talk about the pitfalls as well. One of the pitfalls is that people play too much games or they consume useless content. You're not going to regret not playing as much games. I think games in moderation are okay, but most people, they don't play in moderation. They play until they're like addicted to the game, and until they're so, I guess, just done with the game because they've like spent so many hours on it. And these gaming companies and these companies that I guess make certain types of content, they are curating that content, and they're curating the experience in the game to make it as addicting as possible, because they know that the more time you spend on their platforms, the more money that they'll get. So keep that in mind. So just don't avoid playing games too much, because I know that in my past, like when I was like studying, I was playing too much games. I was spending too much time watching mindless content. It's okay, like time to time, but remember, you have goals to like achieve. You have a lot of things that you want to do, and honestly, if you can find things that are better than games, better than watching, I guess, useless content, you have a better life. Like you go outside, go for hikes, go see people, go do cool things, go rock climbing, go karting. Um, there's so much to do in life. There's so much you'll regret doing if you don't actually like focus on doing those things. So that's pitfall number one. Pitfall number two is like taking intoxicants like drugs and alcohol. Like most people will downplay just how much of an effect drugs and alcohol have on your body, your mind, and just like your character. Like I know so many people who like after finishing high school, like in my grade, they became junkies. They basically took so much drugs. They went into the party scene. They just ruined themselves, and they were on the path to do great things. And this is one of the pitfalls. And this is why I said it was easy to get better than other people or to become successful, because most people, they are distracted. They're not avoiding these pitfalls. Like sure, you can still be successful and drink alcohol, but it's going to make you sluggish. Like if you drink the next day, you're not going to feel the best, especially if you take some intoxicants as well. Like why would you do that to yourself? Like treat your body like the temple it is. So that's like the second pitfall. The third thing, similar, is having a shitty diet. If you're having fast food, if you're having ultra processed food as well, it's bad for you. Like you've heard this since you were a kid, so much so that you're probably desensitized to this right now. But the companies that make these foods, they don't care about your health. It's hardly food. It barely qualifies as food. It may as well be chemicals. And the stuff they put in is put in to make it as addicting as possible. So you keep buying it. So then they make a profit. They don't care about your health. They only care about their bottom line. And if you avoid these bad foods, think about how much easier it is to get your dream body. Like if you don't eat bad food, you don't have to burn those calories, right? If you just it's easier to avoid eating a Big Mac than it is to burn off a Big Mac. If a Big Mac's like 700 calories, I'm pretty sure you have to run for like an hour to burn that off. It's just not worth it. The last pitfall is becoming a drifter. And being a drifter is just someone who has no meaning in their life. They have no goals that they set for themselves. They have no meaningful relationships, no friends that they spend time with. They're just stuck in their room doing nothing. And you don't want to be stuck in your room doing nothing, right? You want to be exploring life. We're only here for a limited time. Like you could die tomorrow, right? Would you be happy with how you've lived your life? Or would you die with regrets? Like make sure that you're living your life to the best of its potential. I don't mean go work all the time, right? And I don't want to stress you out and just say that you're going to die one day. But when you think about it, when you really think about the finiteness, I don't even think that's a word, but how finite life is. like you'll start to appreciate everything that you do. You'll start to take everything more seriously, at least from the perspective of like enjoying your life. Like enjoy and cherish the time that you spend with your friends, with your family. They're not always gonna be there, right? One day you're gonna have to move out and you're not gonna see your siblings again or your parents. At least you're not gonna see them as often. So just don't be a drifter. Don't just drift through life. Like think about what you want for your life and think about how you can just live a better life. Think about how you can kind of look into the future and think about what kind of person like you want to be.